Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rachel. So I was sitting in a coffee shop the other day with a friend, just having one of those conversations about how bizarre things feel lately. Nothing dramatic, just noticing. There was an older gentleman standing nearby and he overheard us and ended up joining our conversation. Really nice guy. Seemed intelligent, articulate, clearly well-read. And within a few minutes, the three of us were looking at each other, asking the same question. How can so many intelligent, thoughtful people be seeing the same reality so differently? Not in a who's right way, that's not what we were talking about, but in a genuinely confused, almost existential kind of way. And that feeling right there, that moment of, wait, how are we all living in the same country, seeing the same events, and landing in completely different places? That is what I think is exhausting people right now. Because I don't think people are just your normal, everyday life kind of tired. I think a lot of us are worn down from seeing things that don't add up, that don't make sense, and then watching other people act like they absolutely do. It's kind of dumbfounding. You hear something that feels completely off. You see behavior that doesn't line up with what people say they value. Your brain says, seriously? That can't be happening. And then you keep going because you've still got things to do. 5 minutes later, you're making coffee, answering emails, getting on with your day like your brain just didn't hit a speed bump. But that background tension, that takes more energy than people realize. We talk about burnout like it's just about being busy, working too much, stress, lack of sleep, too much on your plate. And yeah, that's real. But there's another layer now. It's the strain of trying to stay grounded in a reality that just feels hard to agree on. You wake up already a little braced. You scroll, you filter, you sort, and you think, is this real? This can't be real. It has to be exaggerated, right? And the wild part isn't just the information, it's the interpretations. We are all watching the same events and arriving at completely different conclusions. That realization changes something. It changes how conversations feel. It changes how rooms feel. It changes how safe your assumptions feel. Then there's that moment when you look around and think, wait, are we all seeing the same thing? You hear something that sounds completely upside down to you. You watch people brush it off. You'll see intelligent, capable adults acting like everything is totally normal. And part of you is thinking, okay, is it just me? This is a total shit show, right? Some people will nod with you. Other people will say, I don't know what you're talking about. And that steady mismatch creates this cognitive whiplash. One part of your brain is trying to stay grounded. The other part is going, what the hell is happening right now? There's actually a name for this feeling, cognitive dissonance. It's when what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and what you're being told don't line up, and your brain has to hold all of it at once. Some people are looking around thinking, I don't see the problem. Other people are looking around thinking, are you fucking kidding me right now? And we're all living in the same environment, standing in the same room. That's not just disagreement, that is fracture. And living inside that fracture wears on you. You still have to go to work, or take care of your house, or manage your retirement, or show up for people. Just get through your day. You cannot walk around having existential debates every 5 minutes. So a lot of it just stays in your head. On the outside, you function. On the inside, there's this split between what you're perceiving and what others seem to be perceiving. That is exhausting. And this is where critical thinking, or the lack of it, starts to matter. Clear thinking takes energy. Sorting through information takes energy. Asking, does this actually make sense? Takes energy. And sometimes, let's just be honest, not thinking too hard is easier. When things feel chaotic, it's easier to grab on to whatever feels certain and move on. We're asking people to stay calm and think clearly in an environment that constantly rewards reaction. Meanwhile, outrage spreads fast. Fear and certainty spread fast. Nuance doesn't travel well. Calm does not travel well. Clarity does not trend. And when your nervous system never really settles, when you are constantly filtering and bracing and absorbing tension, your temper gets shorter. Shorter with conversations, shorter with disagreement, quicker to react. The stakes are real, and that's part of the weight. But living in this constant state of unresolved contradiction, that takes a toll. We all know that at this point, nobody's changing anybody's mind in this conversation, and a lot of these conversations really matter. They're not small things, but constantly trying to force resolution just wears you out. So sometimes you step back, not because it doesn't matter, but because you don't have the energy to live in a constant state of, are you kidding me right now? And this is where it becomes kind of existential. An existential crisis isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the quiet realization that the world you thought you understood isn't as shared as you assumed. That hits kind of deep, because most of us grew up assuming we were operating from a mostly shared baseline of reality. Different opinions? Sure. Different interpretations of events? Of course. But now, we're realizing that even the baseline isn't shared the way we thought. That realization changes something. It doesn't mean you're right and someone else is wrong. It just means the ground feels less stable than it used to. And that instability is tiring. Look, however you see things, from whatever perspective you're coming from, this is a total unsustainable shit show, and we can't just pretend that living in a constant state of contradiction and tension is normal. It's not sustainable for a nervous system. It's not great for relationships or for basic sanity. You can't live indefinitely in a constant state of what the hell is happening without it doing something to you. So, at some point, something has to give. And the only part most of us actually control is how we stay steady inside of it. That said, there's also clarity in it. Maybe the clarity is uncomfortable, but at least it's clarity. You know where people really stand now. You know what values are actually in play. And that might hurt, but it's honest at least. Maybe part of adulthood right now is accepting that we're not all operating from the same lens anymore. Not pretending we are. Not forcing agreement that isn't there. Just accepting that this is the landscape, as messed up as it is. Every generation thinks that they're living in these uniquely chaotic times, and in some ways they are. But humans have always had to figure out how to stay sane when the world felt unstable. What feels different now is how visible the fracture is. We can see, in real time, how differently people interpret the same events. That's confronting, but again, it's also pretty clarifying. It's not about pretending it's fine. It's about accepting that, yeah, this is the unfortunate landscape, and deciding who you're going to be inside it. Are you going to lose your head? Are you going to mirror the chaos? Or are you going to stay grounded in your own values, even if other people are interpreting the same world very differently? That doesn't fix the fracture, but it gives you something solid to stand on. And maybe that is the only sustainable way through this kind of weirdly existential moment. Not convincing everyone, not winning every argument, but staying clear about who you are and how you respond. If you've been feeling more exhausted lately, it might not just be stress. It might be the weight of realizing that shared reality isn't as shared as you thought. And that realization takes energy. Now, if this kind of calm, honest conversation, not pretending everything's fine, but not screaming about it either, is helpful to you, that's what this channel is about. So, if you're not subscribed, you're always welcome here. And if this resonated, liking or commenting helps it reach other people who might need a little less chaos in their feed. The algorithm amplifies outrage. Calm? Not so much. But when people engage with conversations like this, it helps more of them exist. No pressure, just an invitation. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Take care of you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.